I'm Shenise Wigfall. I am the head of agency at Google. A little bit about me. 12 years in the digital space. Before that, I was a publicist. And then I've been at Google for 3 years, managed a few agencies on the West Coast, and then came over to Google, worked on a lot of different verticals, a lot of different businesses, and under my remit is about 40 to 50 agencies and about $2 billion in Google Ads revenue. And so really my whole job is to just make sure that you all have everything you need through your agencies and that your agencies are well equipped and understand Google inside and out. And so Max Connect has been a great partner. For Jad, who was on the main stage, he's on my team, and so this is his partnership. I'm just here to support. So what we're gonna be talking about is really how can we find quality leads on Google? And I hear a lot of times, hey, Meta has better, we're getting better CPAs on Meta, or hey, we're doing native, or we're doing something else, and we're able to figure out leads a little bit better on other platforms. And so hopefully today we can walk through some things to get you the best leads as possible on Google and find quality leads, because I know that that's important. Wow, 2. So what Phil said earlier about the sentiment, thankfully, my slide is a little dated. So my slide goes to Q1 2023, where sentiment was still down. However, as you can see, he had the most recent data. And so that is showing you that right now we're on an uptick. And how do we capitalize on that? How do we lean into that consumer sentiment? Now, what we're seeing on the lead gen space, especially with home services specifically, is because they're directly correlated to interest rates. And so people are not as enthusiastic about some of the things that they need to be purchasing or need to be looking for a quote for their home at the current moment, or for different things, for even their business. Should I be expanding my business? Should I be getting more supplies from a B2B perspective? These are the things that from a lead gen perspective, you guys have a really unique viewpoint in what's going on in terms of the economics of the world right now and of the country right now. And so we're going to talk through, even with that economic uncertainty, what are some things that you can do? Where can we lean in, and how can we find those high quality leads and customers? And so despite rising uncertainty, we do see that there are some industries that still have steady interest. And so this is the first thing that I do, especially with lead gen companies, is try to debunk the myth. I know overall, yeah, we're seeing that decline, but there are some industries that are holding fast. And so insurance, regardless, everyone still needs insurance. Things are happening every day. And even when we see insurance companies leaving certain regions and geos, they need to amplify in other regions as well. Investment services, people are, I showed in the last session, people have been saving and now they're depleting those savings, and so they need investment services to boost back up those savings. Car and automotive and care of that is still holding firm, as well as legal and education services. And so something interesting, real estate, it goes up and down. Like this slide is showing an uptick, but depending on the week that you look at, we could be on a down week. So that's the one where I would say we need to be very reactive and really lean into Max Connect and Google to get the most recent data as possible. So then in terms of the customer's journey, I mentioned this the last time, but it's not linear. Gone are the times and the days where someone said, oh, I need solar panels, and they Googled solar panels, and then they filled out the lead and went with that person and then got the solar panels. Now, there's a whole different way that they're finding and stumbling upon their needs and how they're interacting with your website. So how can we get them, and I'm using solar panels as the example, but how can we get them before they even know that they need solar panels? What does that consumer journey look like? And so 93% of customer journeys are unique, meaning that you have to be nimble and you have to be in multiple channels to be able to find these people because it's not predictable. And so what we're seeing is about 238 million different paths are created every 30 minutes. So if you ever pulled up a path to conversion report or an attribution report to try to really understand what is the journey of all of my users, it's going to be a mix and match of so many different channels that you're in, and it's going to be really, really hard to say this is the one that we'll invest in. So given that, how do we accelerate? How do we lean in and really find users where they're at? And so first, we're going to have to, especially for lead gen, we're going to have to leverage the data so that it works for you. That's in a couple of different ways. That first-party data, when they're coming to your website, and us being able to track their user behavior on their website and learn a little bit more about them. How long are they spending on the site? Did they interact? Did they download a PDF? Did they give us their email address? These are kind of different ways that we can assign a value to that customer to learn how much do we want to invest in them to keep them in the loop. And then we can also look at Google signals that we have. Hey, we don't have all the data from our website, but what does these lookalike audiences or audiences that are similar to them, how are they behaving? And where are they looking and where are they so that we can come find them? And then you transform that demand into revenue. And so this is really looking at what is our overall measurement, how are we looking from a CRM perspective, how are we ingesting that information and giving it back so that we can qualify these leads. Google the platform is wide, and so sometimes we will run into having invalid leads and having traffic where you're like, hey, we're getting the leads, but it feels like bots. It doesn't feel like the people that we actually want. And so what we need to do is really think about the guardrails that we're putting in place to make sure that we're able to transform that demand into revenue and drive higher value from the budget. So like I said, assigning the value of each step along the way and then being able to optimize towards each of those steps so that you are able to make the most out of your budget. So we're going to delve a little into the data. We talk about lead to sell journey a lot with Google. The North Star for any lead gen client that we have is to know their lifetime value. Are they going to come back? Do they only buy me? Do they only purchase or engage with me one time? What is the value of that? Or do I need them to be a repeat customer? What is the value of the people who are repeat customers? How much do we make if we get someone who is loyal to us over time? But before we can even get there, we started the online actions. And this is why it's important to be able to really have great first-party data and be able to track what the actions online are. And so you're able to look at those conversion costs and optimize toward them. Can we look at leads? Can we look at submissions? Can we look at emails? Are we looking at how many people, hopefully we're looking at how many people are engaging with the chat feature, how many people are engaging with our newsletter, and what does the conversion rate look like from there, and do those people turn into qualified leads over time? And then we also want to look at offline actions, especially a lot of lead gen, and I'll ask everyone in the room, who has a call center or some sort of in-person sales process that is not online? Awesome. And so are you currently tracking those offline conversions and pairing them with your digital actions? Excellent. Ooh, you are want it. So that's what we want to see, is that you're able to qualify what those offline actions are and pair them with what's happening online and apply a value, because those people probably found you somewhere online and preferred to interact with a human being, but we still want to give credit to what is going on what we did online as well. And vice versa. Maybe they interacted with you first in person, and then we still need to give credit somewhere to the online interaction as well, because you're paying for that media. And then overall, if we can get to a point where we really understand our data, we have offline conversion imports, we have our online conversion tracking, and we're able to pair those together. Now we understand what the lifetime value is and what the ROI is for this user journey. So we're okay spending a little bit more to get them in the door, because we know that, hey, based on this profile, this person's going to be with us for quite a while. And so this is just from a healthcare perspective, what a lead to sale journey looks like. Now, we were talking earlier about healthcare. It's a tricky time right now for healthcare, especially on what we can track. But healthcare is a wide industry. So for some that can track, we look at, hey, who signed up? What was the value of that sign up? From that, we saw that was about a 30% conversion rate. Then we look at, okay, who, after they signed up, who requested a consultation? Then we assign a value there. Then we look at, after the consultation, did we have a sales qualified call? And so now we're able to see, hey, we're okay with paying more and more the deeper in the funnel that they get, the deeper in the pipeline that they get. Then once they had a scheduled appointment, we know, okay, there's a huge value here. We're getting really, really close to closing this. And so now we have the initial consultation, and that's kind of our final step. And so that's what we look at. And so in terms of this, we say, hey, we're going to increase the revenue and profit by driving that lifetime value, really looking at profitability and also looking at the efficiency. You don't want to be, of course, you don't want to be in a spot where you're paying the $1,500 for the sign up. And so you really want to understand how your dollars are working for you. And so I talked about enhanced conversions for web, but this is enhanced conversions for lead. This is Google's answer or new offline conversion imports. And this is just a more seamless way of doing it. It's still in beta, but it's looking at future-proofing your measurement. As we're going to start not being able to track certain things through cookieless tracking, this is our answer to being able to still maintain some of that offline conversion, because we pair it with something called a G-CLID, which is what we identify as the online user. So that's going to eventually go away, and you will need to move over into enhanced conversion for leads. And so this will be privacy safe. We will not be able to target anyone one-to-one or know a user individually. It will all be hashed data, hashed first-party data. So we hear a lot of, hey, are we passing back personal information? You couldn't if you tried. And there won't be any custom coding that you could do to try to get some of that information. So then when we look at how AI is used to multiply your business, first we want to look at multiplying results. And so we really want to see, how are we able to drive a really strong and reliable ROI based on unlocking growth? How much can we invest in here and continue to grow till we get to kind of like a point of diminishing return? And then we want to look at, how are we using the customer connections that we've built to go to market faster and to meet customers where they are? And then lastly, we want to say, hey, we've done all the work. How are we looking at the expertise and what we already know about our customers to drive value and impact through our messaging, through our creative? Can we get personalized with them so that we can really figure out and define who those high quality leads and customers are? And so a big thing that we love using is AI-powered bidding, which is called value-based bidding. So apply a value at every step of that pipeline, and we can optimize towards it. If you tell me, hey, Shenise, our signups, we're valuing that at $10, we're going to optimize toward $10, and we're going to make sure that we don't go over that. And then you're able to see what volume can you get, what is the quality of leads that you can get for $10 per sign up. And so when we see this applied, we see that conversion value typically lift about 14%. So this is value-based bidding in practice of what I just mentioned. Hey, we have a value of $100. We bid $10 before we had value-based bidding. And with value-based bidding, we were able to bid $5 because we knew that, hey, we have a $300 customer and a $500 customer. We do not need to spend $10 to get this customer. And so through machine learning, we're able to have those predictability patterns and understand a little bit more about the customers so that you are not overspending. And so for customer 2, similar thing. You've been bidding $10 for everybody, regardless of who the person is, but you were appropriate to be bidding $10 for customer 2, and you actually need to bid a little bit more because customer 3 is going to make you more money. You need to bid a little bit more to be in front of them. So that's how value-based bidding works. So then we're going to look at Performance Max. And so Performance Max, we talked about it at the retail session, but it's a little bit different for lead gen. When we look at Performance Max and it's driving scale and growth, and it's really trying to find incremental conversions at a similar cost. And so we see about 18% increase in conversions overall. And so this is where you're going to really try to drive people toward your sign-up page or whatever page that you need to capture the information. Now, I know I'm recorded, but this is coming from me as a Googler. Right now, we're having some interesting feedback on the lead gen form for PMAX. So I recommend going straight to your website and you getting the data and then retargeting off of it rather than having Google do that. And so the best of Google's AI, what we're seeing is single goal-based campaigns. So Performance Max, or PMax as we call it, is absolutely meant to be incremental to what you're doing. So you should be having a full funnel strategy and looking at where am I not targeting, and can PMax find people who I would never typically target? Can they find them at a similar cost that I'm already getting? PMax should not be the only thing that you are doing. And so in that, we're able to look at what are your campaign goals? Can we look at all of your assets? Can we understand what your offline conversion values are? Can we look at targeting signals in that, as well as your geolocation, and find users that will provide incremental revenue to you? So some things that are new and upcoming, it's already out, so it's not upcoming. You can optimize toward new customer acquisition. So this is simply, hey, we already have a retargeting strategy. We're locked in there. We need to learn more about the people who are new. And you can optimize directly toward this goal. Upload that customer email list, and then it's able to understand who's your new customers, who's your existing customers. So to recap, we're going to make sure that we're leveraging your data. First, you're going to do enhanced conversion for web because you need to just understand what their interactions on your website looks like. Then you're going to do enhanced conversions for leads so that you're ahead of the curve. Everyone who's already done offline conversion imports is probably going to have to do enhanced conversions for leads very soon. So if you haven't gotten started on that, you should just start with enhanced conversions for leads. And then you're going to look at how am I bidding to value. Let's go through the lead to sale journey with Max Connects and with Google, and let's apply values at every step of the way. and let's bid to those values and understand what our return is. And then let's look at PMAX to be incremental to what we're already doing. Okay? All right, thank you. Thank you, Kelly.
Well, we appreciate everybody coming out. So thank you, Shenise, for all that information. That's really helpful. So we're excited to kind of dive into a little bit more of the lead gen, strategies that we implement as an agency, some of the things that we see as core competencies as an agency, as well as some of the best opportunities. So we'll kind of start with a couple few things. Hopefully what we can take away from this is lead gen really is you becoming your own hype man. Like, what are you doing out there to promote interest, activity, excitement around your brand so people want to engage with your brand? So a couple takeaways we'll look at are, finding your brand's unique voice, telling your unique story, your value propositions, your unique selling propositions, and then developing and nurturing brand trust. And then I put this in bold, developing leads. Really, that's what this comes down to. Is it's very rarely just reach into the bucket and grab a lead. It's developing a relationship and a story and a reason that somebody's going to reach out and want to engage with your brand. So some of you may have seen this. I think this really ties very well into kind of what we were talking about. That conversion and lead gen is very rarely a straight line. It's not linear, right? I look at this, I'm a big time road biker, a mountain biker. I kind of liken this to riding your bike up Suncrest, which is an awful hill that's just right up the road here. It's steep, it's long, it's ugly, it's hot, it's exposed. And there's all these different twists and turns and challenges and climbs along that path and journey. Same thing applies to lead generation. It's not straight, it's not easy, it's hot, you're gonna break a sweat, it's gonna be brutal, right? First step here is I kind of liken that to the chevron at the bottom of the hill. Are my water bottles full? Do I need to grab a Snickers? What do I need to do to gear up for this? That's hyper-targeted audiences. So taking that first party, that third-party data, and then layering it on. So when you hit the street, you know you're geared up. You got the right audience behind you, and you're building up the right kind of momentum.
I was just thinking about linking this to what Greg was talking about earlier, about the team that was going to the South Pole and how they won because they went 15 miles, 15 miles, 15 miles, 15 miles. I'm thinking about the same thing like with Kelly and his biking. You need to hit your checkpoints. You're pacing yourself. You're saying, okay, I do this, then I hit channel performance and optimization. The right combination of what we're doing, the right channels that we deploy based on the industry. In here we could have a range from, I don't know who's listening in, but we could have SaaS companies, we have home builders, we have healthcare, we have auto dealerships. All of that can be lead gen, and the strategy is going to be wildly different from one to the other. However, I think that working together to find what channels you need to be in, where your customer is one of the key checkpoints.
So I think maybe that second step, channel performance and optimization, is kind of like when I hit Mike Weir Drive. I've gone up about a 10% grade for about 3 miles, and then I'm like, okay, that's my one checkpoint, right? I hit that spot. Next, brand messaging and offer. What are we saying to our customers? What are we saying in a way that's going to compel them to click on your ad, to follow your brand, to come to your website directly, that's compelling and in many cases swaying them away from your competitor, not necessarily bashing on your competitor, but what are the unique selling propositions that you offer that are going to be the compelling reasons why, hey, instead of them, I'm going here. Right? And so really dialing in some of those messaging, some of those offers, A/B testing all that data to determine what is really resonating with those people. Is it this offer? Is it more centered around their lifestyle? Is it more product focused? Whatever it happens to be that really drives that engagement.
And then having a robust ecosystem, Kelly mentioned developing that lead. So the robust ecosystem can be from the beginning. It can be the ads that we run on display or video, search, but also I envision this being after we grab that lead, after we've created this lead, there still needs to be more that happens. It's more than just, okay, now we have their email, we're gonna send them an email, they're gonna buy our product from us, and that's that. You still need to develop, there still needs to be this ecosystem. You need to have a good website, you need to have nurture funnels, you need to have a sales team in place to receive that lead. There's just a lot that goes on behind the scenes, and I know that everyone knows that, but yeah.
So we kind of keep climbing up Suncrest. I'm going to beat that analogy until you guys get sick of it. But you can't have, there's this final climb where you're kind of making this big round push. It's super exposed. It's the steepest part of the climb. It's awful, right? But we've checked all these boxes. We've got there. And then you see what would consider the finish line, even though there is no finish line in the work that we do. You can obtain unrivaled growth and success that has taken blood, sweat, and tears. But you've got a really strong brand message. You've got the right audience. You're continually refining that audience based on information and engagements that you're seeing along the way. So it's never finished because your audiences will change. Their interests will change. The hot buttons for your customers will change based on a variety of different market conditions and everything else. Okay, some of you have maybe seen this before. The reason why we included this is because I think it really comes down to some of our core competencies and core values as an agency of really, again, that very first step and the most critical component of any campaign is, do we know who we're trying to go after? And what is it going to be that's going to compel them, right? And so in many cases, we're taking the what is going to compel them, their online intent. So if you think about your digital fingerprint, every one of us in this room has a unique digital fingerprint, different interests, different hobbies, different things we're shopping for, looking for, whatever, right? And so we're locking onto the interests of these individuals that align with your product. So we're not trying to go out and educate from scratch or convince somebody to come into your brand and have an experience with your brand, but ultimately to really match them with their interests. They already are looking for similar products and services, in many cases maybe from your competitors, and they never heard of you, right? And so then we're trying to hold their hand a little bit, nurture them along the way, and build out that hyper-target audience, and then using our real-time intent platform, then we hit go, and then we're launching campaigns that are out there targeting and delivering ads to these individuals, educating them along that process. Okay, so we already talked about option one, kind of building that out. What's option number two? Just grabbing a big bucket of money and running into paid search and saying, buy a bunch of leads, or go to a third party and buy a bunch of leads. How many of you have done that before? Is that building a great brand story and a relationship with your brand? No, it's just you're putting money in, money out. That's the equation, right? And so on the inverse of that, again, we go back to the foundational components of every campaign that we structure is building out a story, a reason for them to connect with you, a reason to reach out to you, because you have plethora of valued customers, of loyal customers that have stories. They have these journeys. You've built all that out and nurtured it along. So sure, there's going to be opportunities where you might have a big push, a big quarterly incentive or something like that. You're making pushes and you're dropping more into these low funnel strategies and trying to shake the tree, get more fruit out. But ultimately, if you take your eye off the prize of building that brand reputation and building those opportunities, then boy, there's some crazy things going to happen. We're going to talk about them in a second.
Okay, so these are, like I mentioned before, we have lead gen could be a wide variety of industries. The last breakout was e-com and retail, and that's pretty straightforward. That's what it is. But lead gen, anyone can want that, even retail and e-com. Lead gen, you talked about gathering first-party data in the last one. One like Facebook and LinkedIn, they have lead form ads, so does Google. And that's yet another way that you can gather, you can create your own leads, create your own first-party data is running those ads. But the point is there's a lot that you can do. In general, these are the strategies that we deploy. We do display. We're really loving pre-roll and connected TV these days. Video is such a good way to get your brand out there, to educate people on what you do, why they should buy from you, why you're better than the competition. It's an awesome way to get in front of people. Paid search is obviously bottom of funnel. We've talked about that. Conquesting can be done on lots of these different channels. Social and paid search and display and pre-roll. You can conquest your competitors. And then retargeting is also done on many of these other channels. If you go to the next slide. Again, briefly, here's like a list of what can be done within each channel. Again, we really want to tailor these strategies, and you should be doing that for what, like, you need to know who your customer is, like Kelly talked about before, because that's really going to determine which of all this you do. And there's more on here or there's more that isn't listed on here. But I think that as far as like some key points I would take from this is retargeting. Obviously, that's bottom of funnel. When we talk about bottom of funnel, that's going to drive leads. Paid search, Meta and LinkedIn, we've seen drive tons of leads. When we talk about quality, that's a different conversation. There's always a fine line between volume and quality. I think for the most part, when you're buying leads from a third party, and most of the time those leads are low quality, the conversion rate from lead to close is low. And sometimes you see that in Meta as well, where yeah, it's driving tons of leads. Our cost per lead is $15, but none of them are converting. So there's this constant battle where we're trying to decide, okay, between volume and quality. But lead form ads do drive a lot of interest. And then paid search, again, capturing your bottom of funnel, the people that are searching for your brand and the specific product that you're offering.
I'm going to back up for just 1 second here because I think this is kind of an interesting analogy here. As you look at this funnel, awareness, interest, consideration, intent, and purchase, most of us in here probably deal with considered purchases where it's kind of a research phase. It's not just a one-click add to cart and then leave and never come back again. It was just like about a $5 widget, right? It's, hey, this is either a big purchase or something I want to do a lot of research on. So you can have people that maybe start out in awareness and they're just kicking the tires. They may be like going back to Devin's story at the beginning where it's like, hey, my wife saw something an influencer was wearing the shoes, and then I was retargeted off of this, and like people can actually bounce up and down this funnel throughout their journey. It's not just like if you think, okay, we're going to build awareness this quarter, then next quarter we're going to we're going to try and get people over to where they're showing interest and consideration, and then you take your foot off the gas pedal on awareness. Well, then what's building the top of your funnel? Then the top of your funnel dries out, and then you're just chasing them down to try and get to the considered purchase where they're making a decision, right? And so people can graduate from each category and sometimes revert back. I mean, you think about like a big purchase. If you get down all the way to your intent and you're like, hey, I've watched like 150 YouTube videos. This is the car we're getting. You go show your wife. She's like, no, I hate that car. You're like, oh, well, I'm back up to the awareness phase, right? So I think every one of us has been there, right? Where you think you've narrowed it down, and then you're like, oh, reset to 0. Let's go back and figure this out, right? And so it just showcases the importance of being there throughout the entire journey, so you can help that person make those decisions that are going to lead them to your brand and making a purchase from you.
Well, here's a general budget allocation based on like stage of the journey. Lead capture, which could be seen as bottom of funnel to middle of funnel, about 45%. Intent building, which I would view as middle of funnel, if we want to call it that, about 25%. And then top of funnel or demand generating interest at the very high level, maybe about 30%. One question I wanted to pose is, we've talked a lot about brand building, we've talked a lot about brand plus performance, we've talked a lot about a holistic approach. Like when we talk about bottom of funnel channels, that's what? Paid search, that's social channels when we're talking about lead gen. Why are they bottom of funnel? Why do they convert better? Like, why is paid search such a good lead gen channel? Does anyone? Like, I'm thinking, so it's because of your brand. It's because of your brand terms. Social converts because of your retargeting audiences. Paid search converts the most in your self-branded campaign or your organic traffic to your website. And same thing with direct. And the only way, paid search though doesn't increase the volume of those searches or increase the number of impressions that can happen there. It's these other channels. It's search, it's display, it's video, it's people knowing who you are that increase your highest converting channels, whether it's paid or not paid. It could be organic and direct. Like whenever we look in Google Analytics, those are the highest converting channels. They have the most sessions, and the way to increase those are it's not paid search, and it's not lead gen forms. Those don't even go to your website. So just think about that. Think about what your bottom of funnel audience is and how you can increase that, how you can increase the number of people that are searching for your brand.
I think about that snapshot of kudos that Devin shared in this session earlier today, where he talked about first ad that got him there was a Max Connect display ad. Then they came back through a remarketing ad. Then they were direct like 6 times. So if you were to look at that and you were just looking at source media, like, dude, we need to get more direct traffic. Well, can you buy direct traffic? No. Well, how do you build it?
Yeah, I mean, without the display ad, the VIN retargeting ad doesn't happen because they didn't even look at a car yet. You can't retarget without getting someone there first. Yeah.
So educating about your brand, getting them bought into your brand is ultimately what's going to have the biggest impact in your direct and your organic traffic. And if somebody knows your URL and has been to your website 10, 15, 30 times, then chances are they're pretty interested in your product, number one. And what are you going to do to kind of close the loop and keep that person engaged where they finally make contact? Okay, so brand and performance. So we've talked a lot about this in the other breakout sessions, but ultimately this just is a combination of, okay, the full spectrum of marketing from the very initial stages all the way through to conversion. I'll let you kind of talk about that.
I will say, it's not as simple as, okay, we're going to spend more on display and video, then our bottom of funnel is going to increase. There still needs to be KPIs and things that we look at for these top of funnel channels. We need to look at, we can look at Google Search Console and we can see how many branded impressions are happening. We started video on this day. We ran 10 grand, 15 grand, 20 grand for 2 months. What happened to our branded search impressions? That includes organic and paid search. Are they increasing? Yes, that's great. That's a win. Like, we need to figure out, and this can be done, this should be done with Max Connect, or if you're doing it in-house or whoever it is with your team, figuring out what is a win there as far as top of funnel or brand goes, and how you're going to look at that. It could be looking at conversion rates. If more people know who I am, that means more people that come to the site should be converting. So, and I would guess that that increase that you see there is going to be minimal as far as percentage points go, but that's something that you can look at. Anyways, you just need to determine the KPIs. You need to figure out what you're looking for so that you can pivot as needed and gauge success.
And you'll notice this is like DNA. Brand and performance, they're intertwined, right? They really do cooperate, and one lifts the other, and vice versa. Right, and so when your brand stuff is struggling, hey, we might need to go dip and take that bag of money and go buy some leads, or go to the bottom of the funnel and try and cultivate some things to meet some business objectives. But ultimately, taking your eye off the prize of establishing your brand and getting those people bought in will indefinitely have long-term and lasting consequences. Okay, so before we even touch on this, and this maybe have been included in some of the other slides that I didn't see, but when I was talking to Peyton about this, one thing came to mind, and it was Goldilocks and the Three Bears. Have you guys heard the story? If you haven't heard the story, just get out of here.
Yeah.
Brand marketing, performance marketing, and where's that sweet spot? We got the porridge is too hot, we got the porridge is too cold. If we're trying to establish the performance marketing, that's where it's hot. It's hot, it's spicy, it's costly, right? But on the brand side, hey, they're colder, but we're warming them up. We're transitioning them over to the middle to where those two things really can meld together, and you can be here where you need it, be there where you need it, but ultimately working harmoniously to get that person right in the sweet spot to where you've got them fully engaged in your brand.
When we were talking about effortless, Greg talked about a similar thing. He just briefly touched on it. It's not lazy, that's this end of the spectrum, and we're trying to get away from giving 110%. It's somewhere in the middle. It's your perfect pace or whatever it is. Continuing in that zone is the best, and that's the same idea.
Okay, I wish I would have blocked out the text at the bottom of this and then asked you guys a question. To look at this, so this is a list of a campaign that we are running where that we were able to segment some of the different competitors as well. And so each one of these lines represents a competitor, a direct competitor. In some cases, they're much larger competitors with a much larger footprint. But you can see where that yellow category for search, they're buying leads. They're dumping money into that funnel, right? So the campaign that we're running is very holistic. It covers, definitely have a strong foot on the gas pedal from a paid search standpoint, but so look at some of these other channels. Direct traffic, look at the difference between the campaign that we're running and these other campaigns. They've got 29%, 36% of their traffic coming from direct. So those are people who know their brand, right? It's a lot smaller percentage.
Just to clarify, our campaign is the top one.
Yeah, the top one. Yeah,
Why, I mean, and again, a question, like, why is that important? It's because direct traffic converts. Direct and organic in your branded terms, that's what converts. That's where you get your leads.
So if I were to ask you in here, that 60% of direct traffic, what would you attribute that to?
People know your brand.
People know your brand, right? And that doesn't come easy. That's the long game, right? And so if we're in business to come in and make a splash in 10 months and then cash out and retire, maybe it's a different strategy and approach. But if we're looking to grow year over year and establish our brand, people got to know the brand, right? And 60% of their traffic's coming from direct because we've done a heck of a job building that brand to where people love them. They like the videos they put out. They like the display ads they put out. They love all the different things that they're putting out there in the marketplace to really get engaged and have solid interest and also outreach to this company. Okay, so what happens if we focus only on the prize, the bottom of the funnel? What happens? Can you force more people in the market to search for your products and services? I mean, you might be able to if you've got a Coke budget, but I'm sure most of us in here are operating on a limited budget. I mean, even Coca-Cola's got a limited budget, but we don't have Coke budgets, right? So when we look at this, we see, hey, there's definitely times and places where there maybe need to be more priority at the bottom of the funnel. But ultimately, this is an example. We had a client that came to us and said, hey, we've been running these campaigns, and we had a multi-funnel approach. We were running a variety of different campaigns, building the funnel, establishing the brand, and seeing really good results. So much so that one of the sales team is saying, hey, it's so great that we've started doing this. We've started marketing. And the VP of the company's like, we've been doing this same thing for years. But now we just shifted the approach, right? And so the sales team's thinking, hey, we're just finally branching out into marketing, when in reality they've been marketing for years. And the only thing that changed was we went back to the basics and said, hey, we need to understand your audience. We need to understand your demographics. We need to create these campaigns that target them specifically and are unique to them by product, by interest, things like that. New person comes into the company, says, hey, we want to switch some things up. So what they wanted to switch up was pause this, pause that, pause that. We're going heavy on search. We're going to search for these terms. Basically, what those terms were all the competitive terms that every single one of their competitors was bidding on without any brand relationship, right? So we're like, hey, I'm telling you, this is the wrong strategy. This is going to have some negative connotations. You're going to see some struggles. It says, noted. Let's do it, right? Okay, here we go. So search spend, you can see a big jump in search spend from $14,000 to $32,000 a month. Search impressions, hey, that's great. We got more impressions out there on search, right? Our predictions became a reality very quickly. You'll see that search clicks, hey, they got more clicks, not proportionally to what they were spending, more clicks and or impressions, but look at their click-through rate. Crap. Less of the people we're getting in front of are clicking our ads. Why? Because you're the same dang ad as everybody else out there, and you're swimming in the same pool at the high cost, right? Search cost per click, $1.55, skyrocketed to $2.94. This is in less than a 40-day period. Cost per conversion, the biggest one, the biggest kick in the shorts, going from under $1 to $2.38, right? Huge change.
Yeah. I mean, if we're talking about lead gen, that's all that really matters. cost per lead, cost per conversion. So yeah.
I would say that, I mean, the biggest thing, and we basically came to a misalignment in strategy and understanding, and the longevity and strength of these campaigns, to the point where we parted ways. This is not an account that we're associated with any longer, because ultimately, who's going to be held responsible for the results? Max Connect, the digital agency, went in the whole time, we're like, this doesn't work. This is not sustainable. And if you want to play in only the most competitive costs, the lowest performing avenues, then go it on your own, and we're okay with that. Okay, a couple other just quick metrics on this. Bounce rate up, pages per session down, time engagement down. Everything where it matters most was suffering as a result of this change. We appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming.